One of the joys of podcasting is revisiting and catching up with old guests. 2 years ago, I interviewed Zally's founder and CEO, Patrick Smith. And today's episode sees me take the short trip up to Manchester to talk to their development lead, Elliott, to find out what they've been up to.
Okay. Elliott, thanks for making some time.
No, thank you very much for coming in. Thank you for coming to the office. Hopefully give you a little bit of an insight into Zally in Manchester.
Well, it's nice because this is the third time we've had Zally on the podcast. I interviewed Patrick in Manchester, but in a studio.
Yep.
Then I interviewed one of your former colleagues in London. Mm-hmm. So this is the first time that I've actually been in Zally's office.
Yeah, it's nice. I think I was just showing you around and saying like we've now moved from what was Dish in Manchester, and we've got our own space. It's nice. We've got some of the artwork up that you can see behind me. It's sort of Patrick's, our CEO's stamp. It's really nice. Yeah.
Does it feel like the company's kind of growing up? I don't know whether that's the right phrase.
I think that's a perfect representation. I don't know if you've seen the recent brand redesign. So we're very historically we've been very loud, very pink.
Yeah.
And we've just gone through this very heavy process of a redesign that's a little bit more grown up as we've moved to our new office, as we're starting to scale, get more people.
Yeah.
It's starting to feel a bit more real.
Well, look, let's start with some context setting, because whilst we're talking very familiar with Zally and what you are, since I've had the business on the show, we've picked up some new listeners, many of whom may not be familiar with who Zally are.
Yes.
So let's start there.
Okay.
What is the business?
Yes. At a very high level, we have a very bold sort of mission that we're trying to do, and we're trying to understand behaviour.
Yeah.
So that is through the devices that we interact with on a daily basis. How can we understand how people interact with them? So your mobile device, your wearable, your laptop, anything sort of Internet of Things, how can we take that data to make your life easier? What we're starting with is security, based on Patrick's original vision. So his mum sadly passed away with cancer, and his father had dementia and forgot his password. So he wanted to sort of solve the password problem. But on that journey, he's gone more towards behaviour and understanding that. So we're still working on security and passwords and authentication, but the product that we have now is called continuous authentication. And the idea behind that is that we take the data from your mobile device every 3 or so seconds, and we can give a prediction of whether it's the user or an imposter. So imagine you're going into your banking app, like Barclays, for example, and you logged in, but then somebody takes the device. Nobody knows that somebody else has got hold of that device. They could make a payment out of your account or move some money to their own account, do what they want. But with our continuous authentication product, we would automatically predict that somebody's got hold of the device. Barclays can then take that information and shut them down or ask them to do a step up in authentication.
Just through the way someone's tapping on the screen?
Exactly, yeah. So we take accelerometer data, magnetometer data, gyroscope and touch data. So there's no actual personal identifiable information. It's just accelerometer sensor data from the phone that we take every 3 seconds and run through some of the models to make that prediction.
So I suppose there's 2 questions that someone might have. One is quite a boring question, but let's do that first.
Yeah.
If you're taking information from a phone every 3 seconds or a device every 3 seconds, is that a massive drain on the battery? You know, if you've got your phone,
No, it's
hang on a minute.
Yeah. When we talk to clients, they're like, how much is it going to cost us to actually just send that amount of data? Because over hours, that turns into quite a big chunk of data.
Yeah.
So we've done a lot of tests on the phone, and the actual battery drain is negligible.
And the data?
And the data size is relatively small in the kilobytes. And I think what people are always concerned about is like over time, but if you think of your experience with Barclays, for example, and you go in to make a payment, you're only actually within the app for a very short period of time. So you're only collecting data when somebody's in the app. So you might be in there for five minutes max to go and make a payment to someone. The actual data that we collect in that period isn't very long.
So it's not like an app that sits on your phone, that scans your phone all the time. It's when you go into a product which is using Zally.
Exactly. So it's the core product is an SDK that sits behind people's apps. So it could be Barclays, it could be YouTube, it could be an airport app or something like that. What we find is the clients that are interested in working with us are the enterprise clients that have this large scale problem of authentication that they just can't manage. So they're doing MFA, they're doing passwords, and trying to make their apps as secure as possible, but they're still having issues. So they want to put us into their apps to have another layer of information that they can use. Yeah.
And I suppose the second obvious initial question is, you've got biometrics, you have a fingerprint that's unique, you've got passwords which are not unique but you have set. How does someone's touch, someone's rhythm, I suppose, of usage on a device, how unique is it?
Yes, it blows my mind what the AI team are capable of. Like the differences between thousands of people with the touch data and the accelerometer data. The unique thing that Zally has is how we combine all of that and we process that information.
Yeah.
And that gives us the ability to distinguish the difference between me and you. And as the process has gone over the 3 years that Zally have been building the product, there has been issues in the past where, we might be similar in the way that we scroll. But the unique thing is that our model can now tell the difference between thousands, millions of users. So I'm quite excited to not only just do authentication, but how this can be used in future things like healthcare and stuff around that is quite exciting.
So when you log into your phone for the first time, you're kind of setting up a user profile and it asks you to rock your fingerprint all over the screen and it builds up that's your fingerprint, fine. How long does it take you to build up that picture of someone's activity? And especially if it's sitting behind an app. I suppose it's this thing that if you're turning on two-factor authentication on your phone, are you now, on a banking app, are you now turning on Zally's feature, and how long does that take you to kind of log yourself?
We'll show you something we've been working on after this because we've found it hard to relay how it actually works because it's in the background. No, you don't actually see it working. Yeah. So what we've actually done is we built our own banking app. Okay. And then we've put our product in the background. So I'll show you that after this. But the way we actually build your fingerprint, your profile, is that you will never see it. It's frictionless. It happens in the background. So as you're using your Barclays app or any app, we're just collecting that data and making an assessment. Have we got enough to build a profile for this individual? Fine. Once we have enough data of you just interacting, so it might be over a couple of weeks that you have make 2 or 3 payments in your Barclays app. We'll use that data, run it through our models and make an assessment. Right, this person is ready to move from training to ready for inference. And once you're in that state, then you get that continuous authentication. So whoever's implementing our SDK will get like a flag saying, right, this mover's now trained. You will get information saying user imposter, user imposter. Got it. And it's completely in the background, so you will never, as a user, end user, you'd never experience it.
So the kind of the sensitive data, banking apps, maybe medical stuff. Yeah. That's all very clear kind of user case and a very clear B2C proposition for enterprise organizations. Yeah. What's the behavior stuff? What else could this lead to?
With the thing, and hopefully we'll get into a bit of my background, the thing that I'm really excited about is healthcare. Being able to monitor someone's behavior over time and see the changes in their behavior could lead us to making predictions of this person's at risk of getting dementia or even serious more diagnoses like cancer. If we do it at the scale that we're ambitious about achieving, having that information over time, not just through the mobile device, but through a wearable, through any other sort of piece of equipment that collects data about the human, I do believe, and I will get into my experience and why that's relevant to that, is I think there's a pattern in there that's not being tapped into, and that's something I'm excited about in the future.
Yeah, I did read a few years ago this idea that Spotify would be able to identify if someone has dementia or Parkinson's, or just through the movements of their.
I think it's the scale, and I think Google have done similar predictions, like based on your search history, they can make a prediction of like when you're going to get married and what diseases you're going to have. Like, it's just the scale of data that people have. So there's no surprise that Spotify probably can do something similar. Yeah.
But obviously that's a few years ago, and that's, just because of the amount of people that are using Spotify, what you've got is something that can go across many different applications and many different devices.
Exactly, and it gives the context. I think all the missing piece with all of these predictions is the context behind the user. So even when you go to your GP, for example, and you're saying, giving your symptoms, they're still missing a bit of context, and they have to have that conversation like, right, could you just answer me this question? Could you tell me a bit more about this? With the behaviour element, you can give that context over time. So what have you experienced over the past 2 months and how has your behaviour changed? That gives the added context, and I think that's the missing piece, especially like Patrick always says, technology, we have to adapt to technology at the minute. As humans, we still do, even with AI, but with the behaviour element, it can be the other way around. Technology can adapt to us.
Which is quite handy because we've spent thousands of, millennia evolving into what we are, and we can't really keep pace with technology, so it's good if it bends to us.
Yes, it'd be nice.
So you're development lead?
Yes. Yes.
You mentioned a bit about your background. How have you come to be in situ here? Because I think when we first met in the autumn, you've been here a few months.
Yes.
So you've probably been here about half a year or so, maybe?
Yes, just over. So 7 months.
Yep.
It's a wild journey. It's like, I think we can go through the whole journey. I think I sort of started out in my university career, and what I wanted to do was be involved in tech. Really wanted to build like equipment, sports equipment, innovate at that level. I was always good at maths and I love sport. So I went to university and did a maths degree with a little bit of sport involved, and I thought, this isn't really narrowing in what I wanted to do. And I went and did a gap year to pay for a master's, paid for a master's in sports engineering, which was like, right, I'm going to get the chance to design some really innovative sports equipment. But it was around the time that machine learning and wearables were becoming really popular. Yeah. I sort of made a bit of a pivot in my lifestyle, my career. I was like, right, I'm going to go at this AI thing and look at wearables. And it was a healthcare project for my master's. And I just saw the scale difference of like how many people I could help looking at this sort of data and giving the contextual information behind wearables, because it was an activity recognition project for Sheffield National Centre for Sport and Exercise Medicine. And then from there had a really good opportunity for a PhD at Loughborough University with the military. And that opened up the doors to wearables, machine learning. It was starting to really grow there, like how popular machine learning was, not the AI world that we see now, but more machine learning and applying it to wearable data. And that was around military recruits. So they have a massive problem at the minute. I think they still have it, or they did at the time. In phase 1, 25% of recruits would get injured because of just they go through this process where they try to toughen them up, which is what you need to do in the military, but it costs a lot of money. And at the time, I think it was around £64,000 to put somebody through phase 1 training. And if you're the government and you're looking, saying, right, 25% of them are getting injured, and we're going to have to spend another 64,000 to put them through, or they're just a wasted recruit and they're going back into civil life. So I sort of went in and monitored the training program with the wearable data, and was building machine learning models to help predict the risk of specifically stress fractures, because that's the big problem that they have. They're marching all the time with heavy weights on their backpacks, and they're just breaking. So that was my PhD, and then that sort of, I loved academia, but it was extremely slow, and I think you probably, in your experience, probably interview a lot of people that have a similar experience, and really wanted to get into industry, and got into a small startup which was in the triathlon space, so a bit of a shift, but it was wearable technology again, and that was a real sort of, I had to learn fast about industry and how things work compared to academia, and then that was a data scientist role, building machine learning models again about wearable data and how we can improve analytics for triathlon. And then from that went to another startup. So I've only ever worked at startups, which is interesting as well, at a company which is based in Manchester called Prevail. And that was, again, a wearable technology company, but they had a bit of a bolder vision of being a unicorn, similar to Patrick's vision. They started off as a direct-to-consumer product and then shifted to sort of a B2B angle. The difference between them was, rather than just wearable technology of sensor data, it also had ECG. So got to learn a lot about biology and understanding that data in relation to the motion data and how you can use them both. Worked on a number of projects there in loads of different verticals. So workforce, again, we did some military work, some sports work, and then healthcare work. And that company sort of pivoted to a healthcare angle as the AI sort of era came about, and the main investor pivoted the company towards building some foundational AI for healthcare. And then out of that, me and a few colleagues started a company in the healthcare space. And that company's still going, 2 wonderful individuals that are still running that. And that was a big shift in my first experience outside of working with wearable data, but more healthcare data. And that company was responsible for taking the medical records that you have in your GP practice and secondary care and using that data. So every time you go to a GP and you report a symptom, it gets put into a code. And basically that company and the model that's built there will take those codes to predict the risk of heart failure in the next 5 years. And if there's a high risk, bring you in at primary care rather than going to A&E which is where 80% of people do present.
And then costs,
Exactly. So in
clogging
the
up beds, etc.
exactly. So in the UK, I think 180,000 people present at A&E or secondary care with heart failure, and 50% of them could have been handled at primary care.
Yeah.
So that company was responsible for and they're still running inaction in primary care at the minute, helping GP practices out, pull those individuals and bring them into primary care and address them early and try and get them on the right path so they don't present at A&E with those issues.
I suppose the difficulty with this from a startup, scale-up point of view is data is opening so much opportunity.
Yes.
You know, we're sitting here with Zally, nominally a authentication tech, but with the potential perhaps to pivot into healthcare.
Yes.
How do you make sure you do that in a way that doesn't put investors off? Because they like to know what are you doing? What's
yes,
here's a clear goal of what we're investing in.
Yeah.
But obviously you don't want to ignore the potential of what the tech could do, and you need to know when to pivot. You need to know what to pivot into. You need to make sure that you don't overstretch. How is that a conversation that is?
Yeah, it's difficult. The investors at the end of the day, they want a return of their investment, and they want market validation of what you're building. So there has been a shift since I've joined to really focus in on continuous authentication, what we're building, trying to put that out to the market at large scale, but also have those conversations. So we had a conversation a couple of weeks ago with an individual that runs a private healthcare practice, and just starting the conversations, because in research and innovation, if you're building something for healthcare or something like that, it does take years to build those systems out. But as you said, the main priority is getting the data. So with that individual, I had the conversation like, right, how do we start the data sort of collection process, and then we can build that into our moat and use the model that we're building for security and apply it to healthcare, because it is a foundational model. So I'd say 85% of the time, the team are focused on this product, return of investment, delivering for the investors, and then making the business successful. But the 15-20% of the time going out and exploring these things that could be done as well, which is exciting, but hard to balance. Yeah, it is hard to balance because there's almost too much to be done.
Yeah.
And you can sometimes get distracted with, oh, this would be really cool to look at, this would be really cool to look at, but let's focus on this, deliver it, move on to the next thing.
It's almost like companies are kind of baking in protection against that Kodak moment from a very early stage.
What do you mean by that?
Well, so there's all that talk at the minute that with an increase in data, with AI, you know, a lot of companies, if they don't move quickly enough, could find themselves very, very quickly made redundant because of the changes or because of competition. You know, that Kodak moment that many might face, and that they have to be lean, they have to be agile to make sure that doesn't happen. And innovation becomes a necessity rather than a nice to have.
It's become natural, I think, in the process. What I've discovered, and this team is absolutely fantastic at using AI and all the tools, is that you can just iterate a lot quicker. The thing that has become difficult, I think, in my point of view is, from my point of view as a leader, is like, it's hard. I've now got more work to review because the team are just churning stuff out at a rate that you can't keep up with, but also actually deploying that successfully. Like, anybody can build a dashboard or a website or a product probably in a day now with these tools, but actually turning it into a product that you can sell and that people are happy with and going to use over and over again is the hardest part. So I do think, especially what we're seeing now with a lot of the companies that were wrappers around ChatGPT, we saw Sora go down last week, and it's probably ruined all of those companies. I think we're going to see a lot more of that over the next couple of years, and the companies that are spending the time to do the product work and spend time in deploying it in the right way, especially for us, we're a security product. We've got to make sure that it works 99.999% of the time, because as soon as we get it wrong and we get an authentication wrong in app, and Barclays, for example, are using that, that's our reputation at risk. So we have to make sure that is right, and that is the hardest part.
So look, you've moved into new premises, you've got space to grow, you are looking to bring people in. out of interest, when you sit down with them at that first instance, how do you frame the business to them? You know, if you're trying to bring a developer in and they're on that journey to help you build, is it we're a security company? Is it we're a behavioural analytics company?
I always start with the big vision. Get people excited about what we're doing, and then go into like, right, who are we actually talking to and what are we working on at the moment? Yeah. And I think in the interview process as well, my approach has completely changed from what it was maybe 2 or 3 years ago, where I would, especially in the technical element, ask them to go away and do a technical task or something like that and then come back. And what I've seen over the past 2 years is that you would just receive 10 versions of the same thing now, because they're just putting it into ChatGPT or Claude. Yeah. So now coming in and bringing them on with a vision and giving them a task that they do in person and using AI is been a big shift in what I do, and that gives them a little bit of a taste of how we work at Zally and what we're focusing on, rather than a sort of disconnected, could you go away and do this? So there's that process, and then in our recruitment process as well, we finish off with Patrick, who gives them the big vision again. So we start with the big vision, get into detail, do the technical stuff, and then go back into big vision and hopefully close them and get them excited about working at Zally.
Just have interest, what do you look for in that person at the minute? I ask that because we're a day on from Oracle announcing that they're cutting 30,000 staff globally. You know, they're letting go of engineers, they're letting go of architects. I am not someone that believes that we're going to see mass unemployment, but undeniably there's going to be some bumps in the market as organisations understand how best to harness these tools that are available to them. New roles will be created at the same time, let's say that, but it does pose the question to tech companies, what are they actually looking for at the minute?
I do think there's a shift. And just to start off with that, I think it's easier for people to shift their careers as well now with AI. Yeah. I've noticed a transition from data scientists obviously going to this AI engineer role, which is all encompassing. It is, and data scientist was a bit like that in the past. But what we're seeing at Zally is we get a lot of data scientists that want to be MLOps engineers, which wasn't even a title really 3 or 4 years ago that was popular, and that's because they just want to put things into practice. So there's that part where the individual can pivot if they want to, and it's easy to do with AI. And then at a business level, it's for me, it's not necessarily looking for someone that knows the textbook, knows the theory. The fundamentals are important, but if you're curious about solving problems, especially in a startup environment, we've got a lot of problems to solve. If you're willing to get stuck in, this might be your job title, but it's likely you're going to be doing other things and helping out. If you're curious and you're willing to solve problems, that's the number one thing that I want someone to come in and the skill I have.
As a dev lead, as someone who is a technologist and enthusiastic about technology, now as he said, you didn't want to work in an academic environment because you wanted to. There's a lot, as we've said, there's a lot of opportunities out there right now. There's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of conversation that goes on at conferences. But from your perspective, what doesn't get enough attention? What could the industry be talking about more than that perhaps it isn't?
It's really, I find it really hard to not get stuck with the hype. It feels like something's coming out every day and you should be trying it and testing it. I think the hardest part sometimes is saying no to something. Like I will get a message saying, have you tried this new thing and how can we use this for the business? And it's sometimes it's like, right, no, we're on plan to deliver this one thing. And we're a very novel company and we use AI very well. But I think the hardest part for me sometimes is clearing the noise out and staying focused on what you're doing, because it's so easy in this world at the minute to be like, yep, I've got 10 million agents and he's acting as a CPO, a CMO, a CTO. And you see a lot of people doing this, like, okay, great, but is it bringing you value? And so I think the real value over the next couple of years is where people say, no, that isn't the right thing for our business. And we see a lot of companies saying we're an AI company, but they're probably just using ChatGPT to ask what they should order for lunch. Right. So it's using AI in the right way and the tools in the right way to deliver value for the product, make your investors happy, make the business successful. That's the thing for me. Yeah.
It's been a pleasure to speak. Thank you very much for giving up some time this morning.
Thank you very much for coming in. I'm excited to show you the product.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Right.
Thank you.